Hi everyone and welcome to GCSE Revision with MFS. In this video we look at eukaryotes and prokaryotes. We focus on the key parts on the specification and how you can gain full marks on exam questions. Please ensure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to ensure you never miss a video from GCSE Revision with MFS. If you would like to join our live lessons, the link to book your place is in the description below. Hi everyone and welcome to our GCSE Biology session. Just while we wait for everyone to join, can you let me know if you can hear me and see my screen in the Q&A? There's also a QR code on the screen now, which you can scan to confirm your attendance to the session. Alternatively, there is a link in the Q&A as well. So please fill out the form just to confirm that you are here, and then we will make a start in approximately 2 minutes. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can let me know in the Q&A as well. Okay, we're going to make a start now. So welcome everyone to our GCSE Biology session. In today's lesson, we are going to be focusing on Unit 1, Topic 1, Eukaryotic and Prokaryotic Cells, and we are going to be focused on some exam questions towards the end of the lesson. Okay, if not already, the QR code is here, which you can use to confirm your attendance. So you can just scan the QR code and you can fill out your details and you would have confirmed your attendance. Alternatively, there is a link in the Q&A if you would want to do it that way. Okay, so if we begin now, here's a glance at the spec of what the exam board are actually wanting you to know and what they expect you to achieve. Okay, and we're going to cover these points on the spec. Okay, we won't be going into magnification or magnitude calculations in today's lesson, but we will have a look at the theory behind prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay, we will have a look at this towards the end of the lesson just to make sure we have ticked off everything. Okay, so if we begin now, we're going to start off by looking at eukaryotic cells. Now, a eukaryotic cell, there are two types of eukaryotic cells which you are the main focus on. So you're meant to know plant cells and animal cells. These are the two main focus at GCSE level. Okay, so we've got plant and animal cells. You need to be able to identify structures within both the cells, compare the similarities and differences between the cells, and then compare these plants and animal cells to other prokaryotic cells such as bacterial cells. Okay, and that's what we're going to be having a look at in today's lesson. So first up over here, we have an animal cell. Okay. Now, an animal cell has these structures. So we've got the cell, and there's just two views of the cell. One's under a light microscope and one's under an electron microscope. Okay, but you don't need to worry about that at the moment. What you do need to worry about is the inner structures inside the cell, and these structures are called organelles. Okay, so organelles are the internal structure of cells. Okay, so these are the internal structure of cells. Okay, so we've got the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is basically I'll explain these organelles in a bit more detail on the next slide. We've got the cytoplasm, we've got the nucleus, we've got the ribosomes, the mitochondria, and the cell membrane. Okay, and this is an example of a classic animal cell. Okay, we also have a plant cell, which is more like this. Again, you don't need to worry about a light microscope and electron microscope. What it's getting at is that with an electron microscope, you have a higher magnification. Okay, now in a plant cell, we have the cytoplasm, we have the nucleus, we have the ribosome. However, we have a vacuole, we have the mitochondria, we have the cell membrane, we have the cell wall, and we have chloroplast. So there are 3 additional structures in plant cells compared to animal cells. Okay, and that's what you need to differentiate against. Okay, so there are 3 different structures. So you need to know the 3 additional structures. And I've ticked them on the diagram for you. So we've got vacuole, cell wall, and chloroplast. And this is an example of a plant cell. Now, eukaryotic cells are basically the one thing that differentiates eukaryotic cells against prokaryotic cells. There are a lot of things, but the main thing that differentiates them is that eukaryotic cells, they have a true nucleus. And what that means is that the DNA is enclosed inside the nucleus. Okay, so the DNA is enclosed inside the nucleus. In prokaryotic cells, the DNA exists as a loop inside the cytoplasm. Okay, it doesn't have a nucleus. So eukaryotic cells have the nucleus and the DNA is enclosed inside the nucleus. Okay, so if we have a look at some of the organelles, first up we have the cytoplasm. Okay, so the cytoplasm is basically what we call the jelly-like substance inside the cell. Okay, so it's the jelly-like substance inside the cell, and this is where the chemical reactions take place. Yeah, this is where the chemical reactions take place, and it's also where all the organelles are. So all of the organelles inside the cells, remember organelles are the internal structures within the cell. All these organelles float in the cytoplasm. So all organelles float in the cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm. Okay, so we've got the cytoplasm there, and both animals and plant cells contain the cytoplasm. Okay, the nucleus. Both animal and plant cells contain a nucleus. Now the nucleus is basically the brain of the cell. Okay, so it's basically the brain of the cell. Okay, it's the brain of the cell and it basically contains the DNA. Okay, so it contains the DNA and regulates the synthesis of proteins as well. Contains the DNA, regulates synthesis of proteins, and as it's the brain of the cells, it can also tell what the tell the other organelles what to do. Okay, so it basically the cell functions because of the nucleus. The nucleus tells what the organelles in the cell what to do. Okay, so we've got the nucleus there. We also have ribosomes. Now, ribosomes are really small structures. As you can see in both cases, you can only see ribosomes under an electron microscopes. And ribosomes are responsible for protein synthesis. Okay, so ribosomes are responsible for making proteins in the cell, i.e., we've got protein synthesis. Okay, remember we need proteins for growth and repair, and without ribosomes we would not be able to produce those proteins inside the cell. We've got the mitochondria. Mitochondria is all about releasing energy in respiration. So mitochondria is all about the release of energy. And you can also have in respiration. Okay, so anything which requires energy will have mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell and it provides the energy required for chemical processes to occur. Okay, so it's all about energy, the mitochondria is. Okay, and we finally have the cell membrane. Okay, so the cell membrane, basically it controls what comes and what goes out. Controls what comes into the cell and what goes out. That's basically what the cell membrane does. Okay, it controls what comes into the cell and what goes out. Okay, now these structures which I've got listed here, these are present in plants and animal cells. Okay, so these structures are present in plants and animal cells. Now, plant cells have 3 additional structures, which is the vacuole, cell wall, and chloroplast. Okay, so we've got the vacuole. Actually, I'm going to write this in a different color. We've got the vacuole. This contains cell sap. So it basically contains the sugars for the cell. Okay, so it contains the sugars for the cell. Okay, and it also gives the cell its structure. So it gives the cell its structure. Okay, that's why if we have a look at the plant cell over here, it has a slight rectangular structure. It's because the vacuole gives the cell its structure. Okay, if we have a look at the next one, which is a cell wall basically In plants, it's made up of cellulose. Okay, it's made up of cellulose. You need to know that in plant cells, and basically it acts as a barrier to the cell. So it protects the cell / provides support. Okay, so we've got that, and finally we have chloroplasts. Whenever you see chloroplasts are a site of photosynthesis. Okay, and by photosynthesis is basically when the plant it's making glucose and oxygen for itself. Okay, and the oxygen is released so humans can intake it. That's why we need plants to survive. So chloroplast, site of photosynthesis, so glucose for energy of the plants. Just on that point, my respiration is for humans where they release carbon dioxide and water, but that's a completely different lesson. Okay, so the three additional structures, just to reiterate there, we have the vacuole, we have the cell wall, and we have the chloroplast. Those are the three additional structures which are present in plant cells. Okay, and we've got these structures over here, which are present in both plant and animal cells. Okay, so we've got that there. So we've looked at eukaryotic cells, and if we just switch back to the points on the spec, so we know that plant and animal cells are eukaryotic cells that have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, genetic material enclosed in the nucleus. We're going to have a look at bacterial cells now. We're not going to take a look at this part. This is for a different lesson. We've looked how we can explain nucleus, cell membranes, mitochondria, chloroplasts in plant cells, and bacterial cells we're going to move on to. And we've looked at where the nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane, mitochondria, ribosomes are in the picture. And in plants, we looked at chloroplast and a vacuole. And plant and animal cells have cell wall made of cellulose, which strengthens the cell. We've also looked at that. So if we go back over here, you can see the structures where they're present from the diagram. We're now going to move on to prokaryotic cells. Now, the key idea over here is that the example of prokaryotic cells most commonly used for exams are bacterial cells. Now, the difference between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, well, the key difference is that prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. Their DNA is left floating in the cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like material inside cells. Okay, so if we have a look at a comparison, prokaryotic cells or bacterial cells are smaller in comparison to eukaryotic cells. Okay, so they're smaller in size. They contain a cytoplasm, cell membrane, and cell wall. The genetic material is not enclosed in the nucleus. There's only a single loop of DNA, and they also contain smaller DNA rings known as plasmids. Okay, so they're smaller in comparison in size. Prokaryotic cells or bacterial cells, they contain cytoplasm, cell membrane, cell wall. We've looked at the functions of all of those organelles. The genetic material is not enclosed in the nucleus. It's enclosed as a single loop of DNA, which is present in the cytoplasm. And there are smaller DNA rings which are known as plasmids. Okay, so that's the comparison between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Okay, so if we have a look at some exam questions, you can have a go at these while I'm explaining them through, but the key idea is to get used to the exam technique. So this question is about cells and transport. Complete table 1. Okay, so what is the name of the cell part which contains the genetic information? Okay, just 30 seconds, have a think about it. Okay, so hopefully you've had to think about that. Contains genetic information, it's the nucleus. Mitochondria is to release energy and control the movement of substances into and out of cells. It's the cell membrane. Okay, if I show you the mock scheme, we've got the mock scheme over here, and this is what they're asking. It has to be in this order. So we've got the nucleus over here, site of respiration, allow, makes ATP or releases energy. So we've got that. It says do not allow, produces or makes or creates energy. It doesn't do that. It releases energy. We've got ATP in the mitochondria, which is the energy. That's why it says do not accept, creates energy. And do not accept anaerobic respiration there as well. Okay, so the key thing there you need is respiration, or it releases energy or makes ATP. And the last one was the cell membrane over there. It controls the movement of substances into and out of cells. That would have got you 3 marks. Okay. Another question, cells in potatoes are plant cells. Cells in potatoes do not contain chloroplasts. What is the function of chloroplasts? Okay, just have a think about it again. I'll just give you 30 seconds and then I'll go through the mock scheme with you. Okay, there's one specific word we are looking for here. Okay, so hopefully you've had to think about it. So remember, chloroplasts are present in plant cells as they are the site of photosynthesis. Okay, so they are the site of photosynthesis. Okay, if I show you the mock scheme, photosynthesis is all they're asking for. Okay, and we've said site of photosynthesis, which would get you 1 mark. Okay, so that's what the mock scheme actually wants from you. Name one type of cell in a potato plant that does not contain chloroplasts. Okay, have a think about this, because think about the cells which are present in a plant. So you might have the cells which are present in the leaf. you might have cells which are present in the stem. Which cell in the plant would not require chloroplast, which would not require sunlight for photosynthesis? Okay, so if we have a look, it's the root hair cell. Remember, root hair cells, they're right under the soil. They're in the soil and they don't even receive sunlight. So there would be no point of them having chloroplasts, as they would not need to photosynthesize, as they are already in the soil. They're not receiving any sunlight, so they won't be able to photosynthesize anyways. So there would be no need for chloroplasts. Okay, so we've got root hair cells, and that would be one more. Okay, so plant cells and fungal cells are similar in structure. Name one structure in figure 2 which is present in both plant cells and fungal cells, but not in animal cells. Okay, again, have a think about it. Okay, so if you I've had a go at this question. Name one structure in figure 2 which is present in both plant and fungal cells. What they're looking for, you could have had a range of answers. So we've got a cell wall and a vacuole, because plant cells and fungal cells, but not animal cells. So it must be something that is not contained within animal cells, basically. So we would have the cell wall or vacuole. Notice they say ignore cellulose. And because it's asking you for a structure, it's not asking you for the inner, like what it's made of or anything like that. And cellulose, there are a lot of components which are made up of cellulose, so it's not directly referring to the cell wall. Okay, so you could have had cell wall or permanent vacuole there. I'm just going to go with cell wall, and that would get you 1 mark. Okay, and we will stop there. Okay, we did have a few more questions lined up, but due to time running out, we will continue with this next lesson. Okay, so next lesson we will slightly move on. We will move on to microscopy. Okay, so again, we've covered all the points on the spec aligned for today's session. Again, if you want to fill out the form which is in the Q&A just to confirm your attendance to the session, that would be great. You will also receive the recording to this session. Okay, if I go back, if you want to scan the QR code, I've got it up here. Okay, and finally, if you have any questions, please do let me know in the Q&A, and I'll answer them for you. If you don't have any questions, then make sure you filled out the attendance form, and then you can leave the meeting, and I hope to see you next week. Okay, thank you everyone for attending today's session, and I hope to see you next week.